So at HubSpot, we define this sales enablement concept as the processes, content, and technology that empowers sales teams to sell efficiently at a higher velocity. And I'm going to kind of dive into processes, content, and then the technology, kind of one by one. So when I think about process, this is a stat that we have in our sales enablement landscape survey that HubSpot does every year. And it was kind of fascinating to me, actually. There's not really, at this day and age, a great place for this sales enablement role. Like, who owns that? Is it a VP of sales? Is it a marketing director? Is there a dedicated person? And I found this interesting because at HubSpot, the sales enablement sort of leads all sit inside the marketing department. And I think it's not done like that. Big missed opportunity, because you kind of lose this idea of kind of a reverse feedback loop. So we have someone who's in charge of sales enablement. They kind of sit between marketing and sales. And what that allows is they can get really, really good insights into what the customers are saying, right? Salespeople have some of the best content ideas. They just don't know it. Give those back to marketing to create content. And then vice versa. Let's say a salesperson gets a lead, it's bad. There's a very good bridge back to marketing so that then they can start to sort of adjust their nurturing strategy. So it's this kind of feedback loop that I think is super critical. Now, when we think about where does this sort of lie in the funnel, at HubSpot we do have sort of our marketing team broken down into these three chunks. So we have our demand generation team who's driving people to the website, converting people on the site. We have our lead nurturing team who's responsible for things like conversion rate optimization, email marketing, etc. We've got sales enablement, who does things like competitive intelligence, creating content for the sales reps to use. But at the end of the day, what I think is most important is that everyone on the team is aligned towards one unified goal. So a lot of places I see that I talk to, they'll have someone that's kind of in charge at the top of the funnel, just focus on traffic. They've got someone in the middle of the funnel, they're focused on click-through rates and open rates or something like that. And then we've got people at the bottom of the funnel, the sales team, etc. They're just focused on closing business. If everyone's not aligned towards either a revenue goal, customer acquisition goal, etc., and I got people doing their own thing. So yeah, once again, sales enablement at HubSpot kind of sits at the bottom. Now, I think another point here, back to this idea of aligning everyone around a unified goal, which is accelerate velocity of deals. This service level agreement, I think, is super critical, and it's not anything novel, but I think most businesses that I talk to, at least, they know the term, they don't actually put it into practice. They don't have some sort of we have something at HubSpot called a smarketing meeting. So it's sales and marketing, now actually product as well. We're all aligned around this goal of acquiring customers. And we have things in place that allow us to really all drive towards that one goal. So marketing needs to generate this many leads, sales needs to call on them in this amount of time, etc. So I think that's critical. And there's really just a few things that matter when creating this SLA. You need a conversion rate from lead to opportunity, conversion rates from opportunity to sale, and you need an average value of the sale. But at the end of the day, I think what's most important as well is many people don't even have any of these types of metrics. So the first things first, we need to understand what the pipeline looks like.
Can you explain what an SLA is?
Service level agreement. So it's basically written agreement between the marketing team, the sales team. If you're a software company, it could even be the product team. So if you have things like a free trial or a freemium model like we now have at HubSpot, where you can just get the CRM and then upgrade, certain metrics in place around things like marketing generates this many leads, sales follows up this quickly. And it's because we know the metrics, we've had this historical close rate. If those different metrics are hit, we're probably going to get to the revenue target. I want to make sure I'm on time.
No, you're good.
I don't want to get booed off stage. And then one last thing on the process. So I kind of broke this down into 4 different sectors. We'll focus on the content and the tech today. But depending on sort of the scale and maturity of the business that you work in, this could also entail things like deal support. So at HubSpot, we have a team that helps with things like, once again, internal like competitive intelligence, like what's the difference between HubSpot and Salesforce or Marketo or something like that. We also have sales engineers that will jump on calls, things like that. It could also be sales training. So you might have a dedicated training person or team or something like that, designed to like ramp reps very quickly. But we'll focus on the content and the tech for today. So when it comes to content, I really do think this is the most critical. Back to my point at the beginning, you could have all the tools in the world to find the right types of prospects. You could have Zoom info or something like that to go and build a list of target accounts. You could have a HubSpot tool or Outreach or something like that to send a bunch of emails. But if you don't have the engine to actually make that work, if you're just sending out this generic email blast to everybody, it's probably not going to work. Very similar to what Greg said. It's an interesting time to be a salesperson, right? You're very rarely talking to someone at the beginning of their journey. They can go online, see how much you discount the tool typically. They could see reviews. They could go get some social proof. Just type into Twitter and get the general consensus about the product. So it's a little bit interesting. I think it's very exciting though, because if you're doing this correctly and if the whole organization is aligned around content and really enabling revenue, it's possible to be getting essentially meetings on your calendar as a salesperson for people that say, I pretty much know I want to buy the tool. Can you just show me a quick demo or run through a quick consultation or something like that and talk them through pricing. So if you're doing this right, it can be a very, very exciting time to be a salesperson. And this is the other thing, I don't think enough organizations really leverage this, because particularly if the sales enablement person lies in marketing, there's often this kind of disconnect. Marketing and sales don't like each other, that type of thing. Salespeople sometimes have the best types of content ideas, right? They get the most objections, they hear the same types of questions, they just don't know it. They don't know that these are things that that a marketer or a content creator or something like that could create. So at the end of the day, lean on the salespeople. You might have to pry a little bit, and you do need this kind of organizational shift to make sure that they're going to want to do that and they see the value. But at the end of the day, a lot of times salespeople have the best ideas for the content. And that's just to reiterate this. We need this kind of organizational shift around content to really make it work. It's not going to work if you kind of half do it or half-ass it. You need everyone backing the content, and it's another good thing about this idea, if you can get this kind of organizational shift, you use that content on the blog, you could use it for sales enablement, you could use it, the repurposing possibilities are essentially endless.
Can you give an example of what you mean by that?
So back to Greg's point, where when he's saying he's doing this outbound led inbound, and you probably get a lot of LinkedIn messages that are just terrible. Way you can stand out there is just by simply providing something helpful. Maybe it's a direct link to a webinar. Maybe it's some sort of helpful piece of content. That could be also used on the blog. That could be also a topic that you run a 30-minute webinar for. So I think once you have this core idea that you want to create some content around, it can be repurposed in 15, 20 different ways.
I guess your phrasing, sales process, is just throwing me off. That doesn't seem like a sales process. But anyway.
How do you nurture that feedback loop? Because I think that is pretty valuable. So you're saying content that comes from salespeople is important. Do you guys do focus groups? How do you encourage your salespeople to talk and give you the information you need? Or do you do it through analytics?
A little bit of both. So we do have that type of and I apologize if the word is a little wrong. That could be my fault. A little bit of both. So there's ways in which in the technology itself, just simply like marking bad fit lead for certain types of reasons, we'll send something back to marketing, and then that person can go back into like a nurturing campaign of sorts. But then we do also have like focus groups of sorts, where it'll be like a marketing manager with a group of 10 to 15 top performing reps, like actually verbalizing these things. Because at the end of the day, a field in CRM is only so valuable. You know, like you do need some sort of verbal communication of like what was the issue with these leads. Classic example actually also would be something like, so we have something called an auto prospector at HubSpot. It's amazing because what it essentially does is, let's say someone comes and requests a demo, emails will go out essentially on my behalf that like look like they're coming from me. I'm sure people have done this before or seen this before. They'll have my link to my calendar so people can just book meetings on my calendar. I'll wake up in the morning and have like a call in the books that I never even talked to the person yet. That's all good and well, but when the links to the calendar aren't properly set up, or there's like glitches essentially with the marketing automation, that's a problem. Like you start having calls show up on your calendar on a Friday at 8 p.m. or something like that with someone in India. Salespeople don't want that. That's something that needs to be verbalized in one of these sort of like focus groups. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I would say both. Thanks. Other questions on there? Now the technology. I know we're close up on the time here. So, like I said, you need to have the strategy and processes in place first. But this is Scott Brinker's MarTech 5000. Essentially why I bring this up is like, there's a hell of a lot of choices. Like you could go out and spend a lot of money and get really confused, right? You could buy 15 different tools for like a data provider. There's 20 different marketing automation tools out there. There's every type of CRM you can imagine. There's social prospecting tools. There's sales automation tools. The list goes on and on and on, which can be certainly very daunting and challenging for one person to figure out. So what I would recommend doing is essentially starting with the core. Like you need some sort of system of record. Even 4 years ago when HubSpot, we didn't have our own CRM, like we had Salesforce and then we had a marketing automation tool. That's challenging, right? Because marketing is working off one system of record, sales is working off another system of record. A lot of things can go wrong with that. So I would personally start with this sort of core, like make sure the data's clean, and then we can start tacking on things like live chat, sales automation, email automation, things like that. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure those things all talk together very well. That's going to drive your analytics, make sure you understand the actual metrics, and it's just going to be more effective. So the three, I was going to jump into this and just show a few of these things and how they work at HubSpot. But do note, like, there's 10, 15 different things that you could buy for these different sort of areas of this. So sales automation, you can use a HubSpot tool, you can use Outreach, you can use SalesLoft. All these things are very powerful. You could route leads through a marketing automation tool. You could also use live chat. So this could be like actual people responding. It could also be a bot. So something like Drift or Intercom or HubSpot. Tons of different tools out there.